Back here now on the show. Thank you guys for joining me for this last segment. And on this segment, we're just going to preview the other Monday Night Football game that we have coming up tonight at 8:15 kickoff on ABC and ESPN Plus. Not the main broadcast. That one is actually set to kick off in just about 4 minutes or so between the Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars. But this one a little bit later, so I saved it for the last segment between the Washington Commanders at 1-1 traveling to the Cincinnati, or actually the Commanders traveling to the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 0-2, trying to find their first win still in this season. Two former LSU quarterbacks playing in this game, which is very, very entertaining because they're obviously going to be at the center of everything pretty much in this game. So we're going to get into it, looking at the outlook for both of these teams. The Commanders in this one, they have some injuries to try and maneuver around. They have Clelin Ferrell, their defensive end, ruled out with a knee injury tonight. Also, defensive back Emmanuel Forbes was questionable coming into this game with a thumb injury, and those are pretty big. Obviously, the pass rush getting to Joe Burrow, and Emmanuel Forbes, I already wasn't feeling great about this Commanders secondary overall, and if he's also going to be ruled out, not a great sign for them, obviously, going forward, but that is one aspect of it, right? And now the Commanders overall coming off of a win at home against the New York Giants is obviously a great thing, right? But still no touchdowns for this offense, right? They scored 7 field goals in that game and still won. It says more about the Giants than anything, but a win's a win for this Commanders team, so at least they're not still looking for a win so early on in this year. Better game overall, though, I will say that on this offense for the Commanders. The running game with Brian Robinson was solid, 17 carries for 133 yards. Unfortunate that he didn't get a touchdown, but still a solid game. Still concerning on defense because Singletary and Malik Nabers both had big days, each with a touchdown and 95 yards at least for both of them. So it just emphasizes more of the weak points on this Commanders defense that I worry about in this contest against the Cincinnati Bengals, but I'll explain why in just a few seconds. Then they were just, you look at the Giants in that game, they just had a big game. Actually, I'm sorry, I was looking at this news that just came in from the NFL. Charger safety Derwin James has been suspended 1 game following an illegal tackle against Pat Freiermuth in Week 3. Derwin James won't play in Week 4 against the Chiefs. He's been suspended. Joe also isn't playing in that game. Justin Herbert's health is up in the air. So next week, not a great outlook for the Chargers with 3 of their most important players not playing. So that is that. But still sticking back to this game, it's weird with this Commanders team because just very unlucky for the Giants last week, right? Because Graham Gano got injured, and the Giants in that game missed a point after attempt, right? A PAT, and they had 2-point attempts. 2 of them failed for that game as well. So you're talking about 4 points, 5 points potentially there that could be added onto that, and the Giants win that game as well, and the Commanders are still looking for a win if that all happens. So they were a bit fortunate, right? More so on the defensive side of the ball that they were able to get away from this unscathed. But that's pretty much the NFL, right? That's how the ebbs and flow of it all goes. Sometimes it is just your day. And like I mentioned when I was reacting to that game, that, the Giants score 3 touchdowns in that game and they still lose. It's just how we kind of predicted that game to go. But that is the Commanders side of things, right? Then you look at the Bengals and their outlook after a tough loss just last week and a bad first game. It looked a lot better against the Kansas City Chiefs right after a bad look in Week 1. The Chiefs game was a lot better. There was a lot of controversy in that. We're not going to get into all of that, but T. Higgins is expected to make his debut tonight, coming off of a nagging hamstring injury, which is great news for them. Their offense looked a lot better, honestly, from Week 1 into Week 2, and now if you get T. Higgins back, it's a lot more of a positive outlook for this team, obviously, with him and Jamar Chase being able to play. Also, their defensive tackle, Sheldon Rankings, has been ruled out of this game, which is, a little bit concerning just because Brian Robinson had a decent game and the Bengals running game hasn't been totally something to write home about. So that's a little bit concerning there. Their safety also, Von Bell, is questionable with a back injury. That's another loss that could affect how their defense is looking in terms of efficiency and dominance in this game, could allow for the Commanders to have some more opportunities. Then also their offense, just more on them. It looked a lot more sophisticated is the word I like to use, because Joe Burrow and how they implemented him, they used different looks, different personnel, motions, and everything like that. It looked more like a high-level offense that even though they might not have Joe Mixon anymore, or they just have Jamar and T. Higgins, and you might not trust guys like Hawkins or Andre Iosivas or Gesicki, scheming them open and having a good game plan a lot of times covers for maybe not having a elite wide receiver or a elite number 2 wide receiver or a star running back. If it all is game planned appropriately and you play to your strengths coming from the offensive coordinator or the head coach, we've seen it with the Vikings, we've seen it with the Steelers of all teams as well, that a lot of that stuff can get covered up if you have game plans like I saw the Bengals have against the Chiefs. So that was a bit more reinforcing to see from them. Still harping on Sheldon Rankings, their run defense remains a concern because of that. If they can get out to a lead, which I believe they are very much capable of, because I'm more worried about the Commanders' overall defense than I am the Bengals' run defense. If they can get out to a lead, then that run defense doesn't really become too much of an issue if they're able to play with the lead. And of course, I couldn't go without mentioning Cam Taylor-Britt. If you guys remember last week, he had some things to say about Xavier Worthy and the Chiefs' offense. Well, now this week, he had more things to say about the Commanders. He said it's a college-level offense, and their offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, and just overall the team keeps it very simple for their rookie quarterback, Jayden Daniels. So again, throwing some more shots out there, trying to call his shot. It worked out pretty well last week. He had that insane interception. Although they lost the game, he played pretty well. So maybe it works out again, but it's always a bit tricky when you're talking about calling your shot like that. But, it is what it is now. He threw out the challenge out there. We'll see if the Commanders answer it. And with that, how and what could affect the outcome of tonight's game is as follows. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins going up against these Washington defensive backs. They just got killed last week by Malik Neighbors. He had a career day against them. And not only do they have to deal against one of them, they have both of them obviously coming back with T. Higgins being implemented back into this offense. How and what do they do to try and give them different looks and not make it so easy for Chase and T. Higgins to be in one-on-one scenarios? Or what do they do to prevent them from taking over, maybe giving up more in the running game? All these sort of things, I'll be interested in seeing how it all plays out. Then we have Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler trying to take advantage of that Cincinnati running game, right? Because I said if they get out to a lead, it won't really matter as much. So the Commanders have to do whatever they can to make it matter, right? How much can Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler make of their touches to have the Bengals come in with more heavy personnel, make it a more favorable matchup outside for a guy like Terry McLaurin, who is still, waiting to kind of have that breakout game with Jayden Daniels. I need to see more of him. How committed to the run are the Washington Commanders in this one, even if they're down a score or 10 points or something like that? That's something I'm interested in seeing. And the pass rush for the Cincinnati Bengals, Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard going up against the Washington Commanders offensive line. These two guys were a menace duo last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. Hendrickson getting in there, Sam Hubbard also being a menace. Now going up against a lesser offensive line, how much can they affect the game and get to Jayden Daniels and sort of rattle him a little bit will be huge in this game. Then some of the factors that I'm interested in seeing, how long can Washington's defense hold up with the Cincinnati wide receivers and the passing offense overall? How quickly can this pass rush get to potentially Joe Burrow and help out that pass defense? And also another factor will be, can Jayden Daniels maneuver through the Bengals pass rush now to get the ball to Terry and Dyami Brown and guys like this, Luke McCaffrey, some of these players, how can Jayden Daniels sort of survive or maneuver around this pass rush to still be successful in this game? And lastly here, we have Washington's run game. How efficient can it be to take time away from Cincinnati, right? I talked about that matchup before. Now, how effective can it be, right? How efficient are they going to be on the ground to limit this Bengals offense? And with all that being said, I feel like it's too many factors for the Commanders, right? If you noticed, I said, how long can Washington's defense hold up? Can Jayden Daniels maneuver around this pressure? And can Washington's run game be efficient? All those having to do with the Commanders. I feel like it's too much for the Commanders to overcome. I feel like Cincinnati at home, they get some of their stars back in T. Higgins. They'll win this game. That'll be my prediction. I don't like Washington's pass defense, quite frankly, against Chase is one thing, but with T. Higgins coming back, it's going to be a whole other ballpark, another whole other game plan that no one's really seen yet. So I feel like the Commanders just don't have the personnel to go match up man for man with those guys. So I feel like it could be a long day for them. And also, we saw some growth just overall from Cincinnati, so I believe it'll continue. I believe more so. Hopefully they get that running game going a little bit more. I'm really interested in seeing that. But overall, I feel like they'll win this game. The Commanders will win. With T. Higgins coming back, I feel like they'll win 27 to, we'll say 27-14. I'll give them the win over the Washington Commanders. And that will be the last thing we will touch on today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. The first Monday Night Football game has already kicked off, so go and watch that. Thank you guys for joining me on today's episode. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the show as well as following the network on all forms of social media. Check out more of the live show on both YouTube channels to catch more of the live shows, but also YouTube Shorts and individual segment videos as well on more coverage around the NFL. And lastly, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more headlines, coverage around the NFL with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you for joining me, and I hope to see you guys back here again tomorrow to go over the Monday Night Football games from tonight.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to